Close my eyes, tell you what's wrong. It's a game, simply along. Even though my last video in this series did not get me the views I was hoping for, I could not help myself when I read this editorial, once again from the illustrious LA Times, and it has a nonsensical joke headline: Court's domestic violence ruling shoots first, asks questions never. Ooh. If a foreign enemy wanted to destroy the United States without anyone noticing, it might try to find a way to weaponize the rights we cherish and use them against us. That way, every action we take to defend our liberty would actually be a blow against it. And here you see a famous picture of people waiting to buy guns in the middle of massive riots going on across the nation. But who needs enemies when we have the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals? The court issued a shocking ruling that puts guns back in the hands of domestic abusers and could ultimately be used to undermine a host of red flag laws in more than a dozen states, including California, that temporarily separate potentially violent people from their guns. How violent? A Texas man named Zaki Rahimi assaulted his girlfriend and then agreed to a restraining order that prohibited him from possessing firearms. Nevertheless, he later shot several times into the home of a person to whom he sold drugs, got in a car accident which he shot at the other driver, fled the scene but returned to shoot again, shot into a law enforcement vehicle, and shot several times into the air after a Whataburger restaurant declined his friend's credit card. Rahimi was obviously armed and dangerous despite the restraining order. Police searched his home and found 2 guns, and he was indicted for violating the order. Okay, so your big push here is talking about an instance when red flag laws were used completely ineffectually. Even if you're saying, oh, it was good, they were trying to take his guns, it just goes to show that if someone wants a gun, they're going to get a gun or have a gun. So the fact that you're saying, oh, he's obviously dangerous, let's do a restraining order, is pointless. Plus, the article makes it seem like the only thing he was indicted for was having the guns against the order, when he obviously committed a few more crimes than that on the way to them realizing he still had firearms. The Fifth Circuit Court ruled that the federal statute prohibiting individuals from possessing a firearm while under a domestic violence restraining order is unconstitutional. True. And therefore, Rahimi never should have had to give up his guns. Also true. In interpreting last year's U.S. Supreme Court ruling, the appeals court ruled that the Constitution prevents interference with his right to his guns. Why? Because domestic violence restraining orders didn't exist in 1789 when the Second Amendment was written. Bruin requires gun restrictions have historical precedent to amplify what the drafters must have been thinking. This is pretty much what it says, but also a simplification, because you cannot have your rights removed before a crime has been committed. That's kind of the whole point of why people stand against red flag laws. Yes, the court in Rahimi's case acknowledged there were laws back then that prevented some dangerous people from having guns, but those precedents don't count in this case. They applied to entire classes of people, like suspected potential rebels, not to people against whom courts had made individualized findings of dangerousness. Besides, the court said, if guns can be taken out of the hands of particular people based on their acts, what's to prevent a government from also taking away guns for not recycling or not driving an electric car? Seriously now, temporarily removing an instrument of violence from a demonstrably violent person might lead to disarming someone for tossing a glass bottle in the trash. Requiring that a violent person hand over his or her gun is more constitutionally suspect than disarming an entire class of people. Okay, this is where the person is also stupid, because yes, we already have people saying that climate change is the gravest threat the world has ever seen, and that we're all going to die in, I think, 9 years now. So why wouldn't the government eventually say, yes, if you don't follow our strict diktats on climate change, you can't have a firearm, or just the next cause du jour, and just dictate anything they want if they can take away guns for any reason. There's a reason you're not supposed to be able to remove rights so easily. There were no semi-automatic weapons or Saturday night specials in the 18th century, yet the courts insist that historical context can impose no restrictions on those weapons. There were rapid-fire weapons, not exactly semi-automatics, but rapid-fire compared to the day, which the Founding Fathers were aware of. While it does restrict our ability to enact laws to defend the public against people who would wield those weapons against us. I mean, if you're violating their constitutional rights, then yes. The gun industry and conservative-dominated courts have selectively ignored the Second Amendment's language about a well-regulated militia and the security of a free state, while you have ignored the shall not be infringed portion of that amendment and have turned that constitutional protection into a national suicide pact. There goes the media just reflecting what the governor said. There's no ties between them at all. Where foreign enemies who would do us harm must be reading the Rahimi opinion, unloading their own weapons, and thinking, why bother? If you're talking about because if you invade, there's a rifle behind every blade of grass, then yes. Anyways, that's all. I just read this article because it came across my newsfeed, and I just could not help but laugh at the ridiculous defense of red flag laws by specifically citing an instance where it was ineffectual completely. But that's all I have for today. Let me know if there's other articles you'd like me to read, or if you'd like me to make any more of these videos. I know the first one wasn't that popular, but it's kind of fun and honestly kind of easy. Please like, share, subscribe, support me on Patreon. Thanks for watching.